The holiday of Easter is most properly understood as the Feast of the Resurrection. By talking resurrection, as we have so many times during this service, if you are convinced somehow that the hope of the Christian is to play your harp with your angelic wings, sitting on a puffy cloud, now and forever, and how boring that is going to be, you've actually missed out. For that is not the resurrection, nor is it the promise of God or the hope of a Christian. For the promise of God and the hope of a Christian is, behold, He is making all things new. It's not that love never dies, for Jesus did die. And He did so out of love. But it's that death itself has been beaten and conquered. And in making all things new, a new heaven and a new earth, restored and redeemed humanity out of God's never-failing love. So on this special day, this Easter morning, this Feast of the Resurrection, I'd like to read one last thing to you. Last time I read this aloud was at the grave of a friend. For this is the hope of a Christian. It comes from the last page of the last chapter of the last book in the Chronicles of Narnia. For those of you who are not familiar with these stories, they are fantasy stories where children are pulled away from their own reality in England and brought into a magical world. In this magical world where there are talking animals and amazing adventures and even a lion that they meet, Aslan, who we see in that first book, is the representation of Christ within this magical world. Going so far as to lay down His own life for those who are wicked and traitorous in order to bring them back to fellowship and life, and being restored and resurrected again, the hope of all who would trust in Him. Well, after many stories and many adventures, many opportunities for those children to travel back and forth from our world to theirs, this is how the story ends. As they see that magical world itself come to its conclusion, the very stars raining from the sky, and a final darkness being brought about in this land. Then restored to something new. A Narnia they had never seen but always hoped for. Meeting once again old friends, heroes throughout history, some of whom hadn't been seen for perhaps thousands of years. And these original children, as they gather, they hear this final conclusion of the story coming from Aslan, who says, "You do not yet look so happy as I mean you to be." Lucy said, "We are so afraid of being sent away. You have sent us back into our own world so often." "No fear of that," said Aslan. "Have you not yet?" Their hearts leaped, and a wild hope rose within them. "There was a real railway accident," said Aslan softly. "Your mother and your father and all of you are, as you used to call it in the Shadowlands, dead. The term is over. The holidays have begun. The dream is ended. This is the morning." And as he spoke, he no longer looked to them like a lion, but things that began to happen after that were so great and beautiful that I cannot write. And for us, this is the end of all the stories. And we can most truly say that they all lived happily ever after. But for them, it was only the beginning of the real story. All their life in this world and all their adventures in Narnia had only been the cover and the title page. Now, at last, They were beginning chapter 1 of the great story, which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before. That is the resurrection. And that is good news.